Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello. Here we are. Ain't no way, buddies, that I can give you a happy show today, obviously. I don't know. I was, it's strange. Just a personal story. I had watched the movie All the President's Men last night about the Watergate break-in and the reporting of Woodward and Bernstein and how that played out. What was that, 1973? 72, 73. It brought me back to where I was at that point. I was living on a pig farm. My husband was in law school. And I remember sitting in that farmhouse watching the Watergate hearings and being afraid. Afraid that the country I thought I knew didn't exist. I had seen my government unmasked in a way that made me fearful. I remember saying to my husband, I'm afraid that he, Nixon, is going to stage a coup d'etat or something. I just feel like these people are insane and they don't follow the law. And then the movie ended and I thought, I'll check out what's happening on the news. And of course came upon Dallas. To put things in perspective is always difficult while you're in the midst of something, and we are in the midst of something. But I wanted to remind myself that I have lived through scary times before, where you weren't sure what the future would bring. In good times, you have a sense of the future is going to be like yesterday was. Things work. This is our lives. Scary times, everything seems destabilized, and often because it is. But I tried to remind myself as I watched what was happening in Dallas that we've lived through scary times before. 1968 was a scary time. I was already a young adult, and that truly was terrifying. And it felt a little bit like it feels now, or maybe quite a bit like it feels now, because there was such a strong racial underpinning to what was happening. You know, after all those riots, I think in 68, so it's 1969 or 1970, the government obviously said we've got to study what's happening, where we went wrong, what is behind this, blah, 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 the black communities going up in smoke and fire and rage. It looked like a war zone between police and black America. And I believe he was the governor of Illinois at the time, a guy named Kerner. might be wrong about that, was asked to chair this commission. And when their report came out, the Kerner Commission, had to be like, I don't know, literally 1969 or 1970. It could have been written yesterday. Because they said in the report that there's poison in the relationship between the black community and our police forces. And that it's a huge problem. That's my memory of some of what the Kerner Commission told us. And then you have to wonder if that was like almost 50 years ago. What have we done? If we find ourselves essentially in the same place. Although it is not the same place, and it's not the same place because of social media. And that's the other thing that so clearly was brought home last night. Things don't just happen now. They happen while we are right in the midst of it, even if we are thousands of miles away, seated in the warmth of our own homes. So we are, as humans have never been before, spectators, 50-yard line seats, best seats in the house, to what's happening. And it'll only become more so. So just in 24 hours, we were brought into that car outside of St. Paul, Minnesota, watching a man die, seeing the gun. And we were right there. We were in the car. And then, 12 hours later? We're on the streets of Dallas, amid the mayhem, shots being fired, terror, death. I don't know what this does to our ability to react to events in a constructive way, in a rational way. Quite clearly, what we saw last night was an extraordinary tragedy. And I say that I'm looking at that from every perspective. Here was a peaceful protest. Americans doing what Americans can do, which is take to the streets in an orderly fashion, with the police actually there to ensure security of their protest. The only people down there were police and protesters. And that was unfolding in other cities as well. In D.C., in Washington, in Philadelphia, in New York City, in Chicago. And all it takes is one crazy person, one person who is thinking with his emotional self and not looking toward consequences of the action he is about to take, can upend it all. It always enrages me that one person or a handful of people can upend the good work of hundreds of thousands, of millions. It's always a few that ruin it. So my first action was one of such rage at the shooter or shooters in Dallas. You idiots! I thought, you fools! Way to make things worse. Way to act out without thought. Way to escalate. And the thing is, the hotheads now will drive this. I mean, if you want to be sickened, I don't. Go to social media now and look at the hate and the one I came across from a former member of Congress from Texas, Joe Walsh. Here's what he tweeted out last night, barely 2 minutes after the shootings. This is now war. Watch out, Obama. Watch out, Black Lives Matter punks. Real America is coming after you. It's people like this. This guy is no different than the sniper. Because at moments like this, there is such a need for calm leadership and for leaders in every community to tamp down the hotheads who will forever screw things up. I just wonder, the fact that we all witnessed the Vietnam War, and not in real time, but it was brought into our living rooms as no war had ever been, how that changed things. It turned America against the war. Seeing black people set upon by dogs and fire hoses because of the witness of the cameras helped turn America toward an understanding of the civil rights movement. But this constant witness that we now are, I was going to say subjected to. I don't know if that's probably not the word, but we now are all witnesses all the time. And quite clearly, this power of witness, and you saw this with the shooting in Minnesota, social media gives to the powerless extraordinary power. The power of witness. So we went from that horror to the Dallas horror, and we were witnesses there as well. And a lot of what you were being shown, if you were watching television last night, was the media brought to you by your fellow citizens who happened to be there, immediately shared with all of us. The power of witness. It's going to change us. There is a real fear of the crazy people's voices becoming ascendant now. And that is because I no longer, like most Americans, trust the news media to handle this responsibly. They do love to give voice to the hottest heads. Cool heads don't draw crowds, and if there's one thing we know about our media, our broadcast and cable media, is that they like crowds. It's how they make their money. And so I worry about us. I worry for us. So, step right up. You got a front row seat to history for the rest of your lives. Watch out about Obama. Wow. Oh, Barbara has sent me excerpts from the Kerner Commission report. Oh, it's earlier than I thought. It came out in 1967, before the horror of 68, but after the summer of 64 with racial rioting. And it says here that the report delivered an indictment of white society. This is 1967. Of white society for isolating and neglecting African Americans. And the Kerner Commission said, in terms of changing this, they felt we needed to turn to the slums and work through job training programs and decent housing. President Johnson, it says here, rejected the recommendations. And in 1968, April, just 1 month after the release of the Kerner report, rioting broke out again in more than 100 cities following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I assure you, if you were alive then and aware, that was terrifying. Imagine rioting in 100 cities. And we did not have the eyewitness seats then. There were not cameras in every city that there were riots or on every corner. Imagine that happening today. And imagine what you would be seeing. The Kerner Commission famously warned of the fact that America was moving toward an apartheid system, essentially, 2 nations, 1 black, 1 white. Separate and unequal. Those are the words from, not the apartheid word, but from the Kerner report. Our nation is moving toward 2 societies, 1 black, 1 white, separate and unequal. And while much has changed since that report came out, quite clearly, a whole heck of a lot has not, including whites' ability to comprehend this problem in an open-hearted, open-minded way, and not in a defensive crouch. All right. I don't know what else. If you guys have anything to say, feel free. It sure blew, I'll tell you, at least it blew the damn email thing off the news. You know, the news coming as it is with such unrelenting fury is buffeting us individually and as a people, a nation, communities. And really, if we ever needed competent, composed leadership on all levels, it is now. It is now. There are enough crazies, enough hotheads, and enough instigators in media, social and professional, to always keep things in a constant state of unsettled fear and loathing. And it is now time for the rest of us to do whatever we can to tamp it down. I understand there is a parade scheduled in Pittsburgh this afternoon at 2:30. Possibility of 1,500 marchers. This is because these are people from out of town, in large part, who have come here for a convention. It's a 2-day gathering this weekend of a bunch of different progressive organizations, some of which whose agendas I agree with, some of whose agendas turn me off. So there's a lot under a progressive banner. Oh, you're going to have a lot of different people. It's called the Still We Rise March. It's supposed to begin at 2:30. Federal Building, Grant Street. And I don't know what this group, if you look, Chris Potter wrote a piece for the Post-Gazette today on this march, and the kinds of issues that this group deals with mostly are issues of economic equality. Their $15, wage, living wage, health issues, some judicial issues, but it's that kind of stuff. And as Potter wrote this story clearly before Dallas happened, nowhere in the story does it say anything about cops. I would hope that these protesters, this group, is smart in their march today about not instigating anything with people's nerves so raw. The Pittsburgh police will be at the march, of course. And the police, of course, are all over this country now, are fearful. And there's nothing scarier than a cop who's afraid. Everybody needs to try to hold things down. I have no idea who is in charge of that group that's going to march today, but I hope they are respectful of the police above all, and do not in any way make this thing worse. a big problem, it seems to me, is our tendency to not think in nuanced terms, so that we believe so often in collective guilt, right? All cops are bad, right? Anybody who thinks all cops are bad is nuts. All blacks are wrong. Fill in the blank. Jews, blacks, cops, gays, trans, French, Palestinians, Israelis, Russians, Chinese. Fill in the blanks. All. And any time you start with, whether you say the all or not, the all is often left understood. You are part of the problem. The minute you do it, you're part of the problem. And we all do it. I'll tell you where I do it all the time is Republicans, I'll say. Right? Oh, God, I wish we could grow up. By the way, a study did come out just the other day that does show that while it sure looks like black people die at the hands of police more than anybody else, the numbers haven't always been there. The numbers are there. Somebody has over years and years been putting them together, and it says the study shows that blacks are far more likely than whites and others to be the victims of use of force by the police. And that's even when racial disparities in crime are taken into account. All the things that can, skew those numbers, all were taken into account, and there's still blacks are a little over 3 times more likely. Caller, go ahead, please.
Hi. I hate to change the subject, but I go to work, and I want to know what you think about this. I'm looking at the internet, and apparently the New York Times interviewed Donald Trump, and
yes, I know what you're talking about.
What do you think about all that?
Well, my sister sent me the article last night saying, remember, I predicted this. She did. What we're talking about is Trump not saying he wouldn't, like after winning the presidency, essentially walk away. Just needing the win. That's all he was ever in it for. And then saying, you know what, though? I don't really want this job. And so walking away. And when asked point blank whether he would do such a thing, here's what Trump said: I'll let you know how I feel about it after it happens.
Now, that is the worst thing he could have said. Why didn't he just say, no, I'm in it for the long haul, I will be president?
No, he doesn't, because he likes to create the attention. I mean, he's being coy. He's making sure he keeps everybody in suspense, that people will watch and listen to. I mean, he is the greatest carnival barker of all time. He knows how to keep the crowd wanting more, yes, wondering what the next thing will be. But of course, this is unsettling. This is exactly right the kind of leadership we don't need. This is not a stable, rational, calming influence. This is quite the opposite.
This isn't a show.
No, this is reality. But see, for him, the show is all about him. And so he is an incendiary presence in a time where we don't need no more incendiary. No. Okay, I thank you.
I got to go to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so he loves controversy, and that's what he does. I mean, there have been people who have said since day one, look, he's a con man, and he's out. Even he has to be stunned that the con has worked. And he's got to be afraid. Because even somewhere in the recesses of his messed up brain, he's got to know that he does not have the skill set to be the President of the United States. He must know it somehow. But I can't see him walking away. I mean, talk about the word of the year, unprecedented. Although, in recent memory, we have seen a pope walk away, which we'd never seen. All bets are off. All bets are off. And like in all of these mass shootings, now we will get to know the people who have lost their lives, and we will be brought low. So far, we only know that one of the officers killed, the transit officer, had served in Iraq. He'd served in Afghanistan. He'd served in 2 war zones and came home alive, only to die on the streets of America at the hands of a sniper who I won't engage in speculation, but who very well may have learned how to be such a good shot because he too might have served. They might have served in the same unit, come home, and once in America, found themselves on opposite sides of the war at home. I don't know. Wouldn't be surprising, would it? This guy comes home, and he's killed. He was just married, they said a few weeks ago or months ago. He's a newlywed. He was a newlywed. We will learn about these people. I can never bear it. I can't bear to learn about the victims ever. I can't, and yet we need to. We need to always look at the faces of those whose lives have been taken in such an absurd and unhelpful and destructive way by those who believe in collective guilt. I understand how what's been going on with the police and the black community can make unstable, enraged people wanna hit back. You kill us, we'll kill you. You know it's not a stretch to get there, right? Which is why so many people are so fearful. Again, I think if it wasn't brought into our living rooms, if it wasn't so real and so raw, that would not be as quite as much of an inducement for violence. Because it's people who can't think ahead, who just think in the moment. And think of, you kill us, we kill you. That's how wars start. It doesn't matter if that's the right guilty party. It doesn't matter if that cop you're shooting might be married to a black woman and have black children. You don't know anything when you just target people who are wearing uniforms. It's as indefensible as cops targeting black motorists or black pedestrians when they wouldn't do it to a white. as the governor of Minnesota said. If that had been a white guy with a broken taillight, he would not be dead. I don't know. How much more are we supposed to absorb? Because it's true with technology now and social media, it's incoming all the time. Incoming all the time. And in some ways, it might be prudent if we learn how to retreat to bunkers of our own making, where we give up our seat and take a break, because it's not doing anything good to us, I don't think. The news is, just unrelievedly horrific. I mean, if we were not talking about this today, we would be talking about, right? Hillary. We would be talking about one horror after another. Listen to this. An African couple who had somehow managed to get away from Boko Haram, the terrorists who were killing their people, somehow had made their way to Italy, to Rome, and finally felt they were safe. A Roman Catholic priest had given them shelter while they applied for asylum, and they were out walking in Rome. And an Italian man, started hurling racist abuse on them. And he ended up killing the husband. Can you imagine? It's like the cop. He goes to a war zone. He comes home alive. He just went to work and he's blown away. These people. Who knows what horrors they witnessed? And they finally feel safe. We've made it to the civilized side. And no matter where you look, it just keeps coming. And if you look, we got to remind ourselves that these are usually, as I said, a few people, not the majority, a few people mucking it up. Haters, lunatics. But there's always those who are inciting them, like this former member of Congress. Isn't that something? Other news. Headline, New York Times, suicide rate among veterans has risen sharply, especially for women. Women veterans, the increase in suicides for female veterans is up 93%. We send them to war. They survive. They come home. They get shot down on the streets or they shoot themselves. Amazing. Okay. I feel like the, angel of death here. I feel like I'm sorry. I wish I could think of something. I mean, what I always take refuge in is I go home and my son is there, and we don't live in turmoil. We live happily. In my immediate environs, my life is wonderful. It's nonviolent. I feel safe. So it's odd that what passes as the news, which is supposedly a journal of what is happening in our world, it really isn't. It doesn't show us our lives that just are going on like normal lives. Doesn't mean always happy. We have our own personal struggles, our personal tragedies, or all that. But our lives. And I guess people have to just remember that. I've often said, I look at the local news. I don't recognize my city. So we need to protect ourselves from what is termed news. We do, or we'll all go mad. I'm going to the baseball game tonight. I'm having people over tomorrow. I'm going to have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to have fun. I'm making plans to go to my 50th high school reunion. I'm living my life. Aren't you? So does the picture you see of our country and our cities, is it representative of your life? I don't know. So anyway, you know how I was saying, times are scary. I thought in 1964 things were coming to an end. I thought Cuban Missile Crisis. I've lived through a lot of things where I thought, that's it, we're done. Right? And we made it. And we made it again in 68, and we made it again in 73, and we made it again in after 9/11. I mean, when you think it's ending, it's over, everything, and then our lives go on. Our lives go on. So we need to have a calming influence on our own heads. If this stuff is starting to freak you out a lot, turn it off. I will not spend this weekend watching the news, because that's not going to put me in a good place. I will need to learn what has been learned, and I will get that in maybe reading my Sunday papers, right? But I am not going to have a steady diet of news, because it's not good for me, and it's not good for you, because it's not news about us. what a world, huh? So the future has never been something we know, which is why it's always so scary. We're hurtling forward, can't help it, into we don't know. We like to think that tomorrow will be like today, essentially, that every day will just be something highly recognizable to us. A lot of people resist all change because it scares them, it unsettles them. A lot of people embrace all change because it excites them. I'm somewhere in between. But the future will come and will challenge us in all kinds of ways, and quite clearly as it has been, it will continue to challenge us more than it used to challenge us Homo sapiens, because it is now changing so rapidly because of technology. I read a piece in the Wall Street Journal today which blew my mind, but which shows us where we're headed. The world that we will inhabit if we're still around. I mean, I don't know what your life expectancy is. I don't know. But 20 years from now, this will be an entirely different world in terms of how we navigate it. The social media, the pervasive social media I've been talking about so much today will seem like laughable in its primitive nature 20 years hence. But I can't know what that means. So the article I read it's about a robot that has been created at Harvard. But it's not just any robot, because this robot has animal cells in it, so that it is part robot and part animal. It's a stingray. It's meant to navigate in water. And as one of the scientists says of the recipe that created this biobot, maybe that's the first time you heard that term, but in 20 years, biobots, I don't know, maybe they'll be cooking your dinner. I don't know. The scientist said the recipe for this biobot, let me find it here because it was pretty astonishingly funny. The materials we use are a pinch of rat, a pinch of breast implant, and a pinch of gold. So what they created was a machine, a robot, that harnesses living tissues, in this case, from the heart cells of a rat, okay? And this thing ends up looking like a stingray, and it is propelled by its stingray-like tail. But it is a robot. It is built around a flexible gold skeleton. Okay? And then that skeleton is coated in layers of soft, elastic silicone molded into the shape of fins. Okay, so we got a gold skeleton, and now we got these silicone fins. And then, put over that is a single layer of about 200,000 live heart cells. taken from laboratory rats. So we got a gold skeleton, we got a plastic over it, and the final layer atop the plastic is living cells from a rat's heart. Says here that heart cells normally beat spontaneously, but that these particular cells were altered by the scientists who added to them a gene from algae that makes the cells contract when exposed to certain wavelengths of light. And so, as you apply light, you can make these heart cells contract or relax. And as they do, because they overlie those fins, they move the fins, they move the tail, and they propel the biobot. The scientists are over the moon with this because they can control this thing. They've run it through little courses. We have navigational control. We have control over velocity, says the scientists. We can control how fast it is undulating, how fast it is swimming. We can control it going here and going there. This is why I say we will live in an unrecognizable reality in 20 years, easily, maybe 10. It'll just keep changing. And people who can't handle change, and there's an awful lot of them, some people are wired that way, God help them. And they're going to cause trouble because they're going to be in a constant state of fear. I mean, this stuff scares me a bit, but I mean, I can see there's no stopping it. I mean, so we're going to have, if they can do this already, they can create a thing, a machine that has cells overlying it. And you tell me how much of a stretch is it to create a skeleton, this time, that looks like us, and put the silicone on that, and then add whatever the cells are you want to add, living things over that machine, and create this, what? Cyborg? This living robot? This bio-bot. Now, where these particular guys are going with this, they've applied for patents. They're not talking about how they'll commercialize what they've pulled off here. But you can bet a lot of people are going to be wanting to do that for money, for good, for ill. But for these particular scientists at Harvard, they did all this because they figure if they can master the biomechanics, the biomechanics of heart cells and heart tissue, then they can obviously build a much better artificial heart. So these guys are looking to be able to replace hearts. Something good. So at this point, they've just built this bizarre-looking little biobot, a robotic stingray of sorts, which they can control. But who? Man. And in that regard, if you want to be forward-thinking and positive, you have a front row seat at one of the, if not the most extraordinary time in human history. Where humans do things they've never done before, and where they change the very nature of what it means to be human, where the lines between machine and human start getting a little blurry. You know, I've always been scared of that. That's my big fear. But that's where we're heading. And that thing in the Wall Street Journal today just showed that is exactly where we're going. Oy. So, did you see they found some high levels of lead in, I think, the Rayburn office building, like near where a lot of these senators and congressmen work? And guess what happened immediately? All members of Congress and their staff were immediately told, don't drink the water in that building, and you can get free blood testing immediately if you're concerned. I bring that up only because, again, did you see such quick action by government when they found increased lead levels in Flint, Michigan? No, we didn't. But as soon as it's the government people themselves where the lead is a little too high. You know, by the way, that this country, because it refuses to tax us and get the money for infrastructure, we've got, I'm sure this city, just tons of lead pipes all over the place that are leaching lead into our water. This is happening all over the country. The odds are that there are so many other Flints in the country. So rather than do the heavy lifting and the pricey stuff of changing these pipes, we add chemicals to the pipes that slows down the corrosion that yields the lead that then gets into the water. I don't know. Okay, guys, here. I'm pretty much done for today, and I'm sorry that I end up having to talk about this stuff. Believe me, I am. I don't come to work with a spring in my step. And when I leave here, I trudge out, head down. But then I go back to my life, take a few deep breaths, and really try to live my life, which is what you should do, and avoid compulsively watching these cable news channels. Please, please. You won't miss anything. You won't miss anything that you need to know. Have a good weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.